I'm Corbett Wall with DB Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, February 23rd, brought to you in part by Y-Tex Tags. Back to business after a week of everything being shut down due to the frigid cold temperatures, hazardous road conditions, and blizzard and things of the like. But back open again. Almost all your markets were back open. Your high volume markets on Monday, although some of them didn't have as big a runs as what we would have expected them to. But nonetheless, we're back to business and should see a full week of business here. Not much talk about the cattle on feed report. It was bearish on Friday, and we noted that. We talked about it a little bit, but it didn't seem to really affect your futures market, and most people in the cash market weren't discussing it too much, and it was just one of those cattle on feed reports that just kind of washed by, and nobody paid too much attention about it, which is kind of a good thing. One thing in news that came out early in the week is a new packing plant in Canada, True Harvest Meats in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, is set to open up with a goal of harvesting 1,600 head per week. That would be significant. And that'll make an effect on us too. I tell you what, they're a little short of feeder cattle right now. Our northern neighbors are, and I've heard several people and know some guys that have been buying cattle for them, sending them north, all along our upper tier and on the western side especially. But they're buying quite a few cattle in this country, and that's why it aggravates me sometimes when our northern plains ranchers and producers are frustrated with Canada being able to play in our markets. More often than not, they're buying cattle down here, taking them north, and we never see them again. That's a good thing for us, and they're doing that right now, guys. So I don't want to hear a whole lot about being frustrated about our trading deals with Canada, because for the most part they're to benefit us. Let's talk about the board on Monday. February live cattle futures down just 20 cents at 115.72. April was down 62 at 123.05. Going out from there, it was down 27, was the most on our out fronts, and that was nearby to as much as 32 cents higher on our back months, but not a lot of activity really in our live cattle pits. March feeder cattle up 20 cents at 139.32. April up 60 at 143.27. Going out from there, and it was down 32 on our farthest outs to as much as 35 cents higher. So about the same, just back and forth one way or the other, but not a big move either way on our live or feeder cattle futures there. Weighted average on last week's negotiated fed cattle trade in your 5-area feeding region, 60,600 head. So a little more than what we really thought on a week where we didn't think we moved hardly anything. 60,600 compares to 62,100 a week ago and 74,800 the same week a year ago. One thing that was curious to me, and I had several people send it to me, our show lists were reported to be down early this week, and I don't take hardly any stock in that, but just wanted to note that. And I don't know, some people said, well, they took cattle off the show list because it was so cold last week that those cattle lost weight, and they wanted to give them time to get that weight back in. Maybe. Why anybody would answer those polls, honestly, I have no idea, because it wouldn't bode to help them very much. But just wanted to note that your show list were reported to be down significantly. Now, whether or not that's going to be fewer cattle on the market for your packers to buy, I wouldn't know, but I wouldn't think that would lend any leverage to our trade at all. But anyway, for what that's worth, that's what it is. But your prices on live steers and heifers last week ranged from 110 to 116.50 on a whole price range there that was steady to a buck lower. But your market was pretty much steady for the bulk of the trade at 114. But your weighted average on live steers was 114.07, which was actually 24 cents higher than the previous week, and most of that due to a fairly significant amount of cattle that traded, mostly in Iowa, but also in eastern Nebraska there. Cattle that were under sheds, fed on slats at 115, they're cleaner, and the packers wanted them, and also they tend to be higher in quality. So that wasn't too bad, actually. Your dress trade on steers and heifers from 178 to 182 as a whole market. That was steady to $3 lower. But for the most part, it was steady, 180 to 182 on a dress basis there, as the bulk of the sales sold in there. So it was kind of like your live sales there. And your weighted average on dress steers was higher, similar to your live steers, but your dress steer weighted average was 180.57. That was up 47 cents compared to a week ago. So we continued to gain ground there, and so that's not horrible. Nationwide, we sold 74,300 head negotiated from coast to coast, almost exactly what we sold the previous week at 74,400. But not nearly as much as the 96,500 that we sold the same week a year ago. But you compare that 74,300 to our formula sales, which were 219,700 head, and that goes to show you that we need minimum negotiated cash sales in our fed cattle arena, and I saw some news on that. I tell you what, Deb Fisher's still working on that. She was crossing the T's, dotting the I's, and checking on that, getting ready to go forth with that Cattle Market Transparency Act, and I sure hope that gets pushed through. We've got our Farm Bureau Federation behind it now. We've got a lot of state cattlemen's organizations behind it, and I think we can get that deal pushed through. But that 74,300 head negotiated, of that 32%, or around 23,900 head, sold for the 15 to 30 day delivery. That's fairly typical right there. Box beef cutout values were higher to start the week out. Choice cuts on Monday afternoon, $239.98, up 75 cents. Selects $229.98, up 208. Talking about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Monday sitting at 140.27, down 76 cents from the end of last week. We kind of expected that as we got our high volume sales back going and more sales in the Southern Plains. Last week we didn't see very many sales at all in the Southern Plains. So the few sales that did actually hold business were in the Northern Plains, and they're going to sell higher. So we had boosted those index values a little bit, and they come down a little bit as we saw some fairly decent sized sales in the Southern Plains to start the week. Talk about your high volume sales, and it wasn't that big this week, but it's our biggest one. Oklahoma National Stockyards, Oklahoma City, 2,700 head there. We thought we would have got more cattle in that, but it's a little muddy around, and guys just didn't get them in. But compared to 2 weeks ago, feeders steady to $2 higher, and calves steady in a light test. And that calf market was the shocker there, because we've seen our lighter weight stocker type calves selling higher. All of the sales that were last week and some of the other sales that started the week out this week were all higher, but don't know if they just didn't have enough for the buyers to sink their teeth into, but only steady on the calf market there in Oklahoma City. Joplin Regional Stockyards, another big high volume sales on Monday. They were expecting 4,000 head Sunday night. That's kind of what they thought they was going to have. They ended up with 6,200. The market improved. Guys wanted to sell cattle, and to get to underestimate that much on a high volume Monday sale, that's unusual. But to blow past your expectation, that's significant. Compared to 2 weeks ago, feeder cattle in Joplin sold steady to $4 higher, and calves sold 5 to as much as $15 higher. And that's what we've been seeing around, is these stocker type calves. Guys are putting cattle together for your big grazing regions like the Osage and the Flint Hills and other places. They want those lightweights. They know that if they wait until later in March or in April, there won't be any calves there to buy. So they're really getting aggressive on those, and they're just getting higher, dollars and dollars higher in all of your sales around, in the past couple of weeks. And we expect that to continue. How about Russell, Iowa? 5,100 head up there, and they had a lot of snow and things up there, but they work right through the cold weather and the winter conditions there. But Russell, Iowa, 5,100. Feeder cattle were as much as $10 higher than 2 weeks ago. Calves steady to $9 higher. So good demand for cash feeder cattle in our auction markets. And look at this top quote out of Russell, Iowa. 54 head, 701 pound steers bring 158 and a quarter. Wow, that's a big time quote out of Russell, Iowa. How about the little market with the big prices? Sylvan Sales Commission company there in Sylvan Grove, Kansas. 78 head, 822 pound feeder steers bring 140.75 for Toby Myers there. Great sale in Sylvan. How about Joplin Regional Stockyards? And you guys think, well, big high volume market like that, they don't ever have any stick out sales. Sometimes they do. Joplin Regional Stockyards, 96 head, 512 pound steer calves there, $192, and that's your Zach Tran top quote for the day. That's your feeder flash for Tuesday.